What if mountains, rivers, and forests were not resources, but beings that listen to humans? This is not a fairy tale, it is how the Ainu of northern Japan once understood the world, and in many ways, still do today. The Ainu are an indigenous community that has lived for a long time in the northern regions of the Japanese archipelago, particularly in what is now Hokkaido, as well as nearby areas such as Sakhalin and the Kuril Islands. Archaeological research suggests that the ancestors of the Ainu have been present in this region for thousands of years, forming a distinct culture that developed alongside, but independently from, communities in southern Japan. The Ainu are often described as having physical features that differ from those of most Japanese people today. In traditional accounts, Ainu individuals are depicted with pronounced noses, relatively deep-set eyes, and thick hair. Men commonly grew full beards as a natural trait. For Ainu women, tattoos around the mouth were a marker of adulthood and a connection to the world of the Kamui. These characteristics reflect long-term ecological and cultural adaptation rather than racial difference in the modern sense. By the late 19th century, as Japan entered a period of modernization, it is estimated that several tens of thousands of Ainu lived primarily in Hokkaido. Today, the officially recorded number of Ainu people is around 20,000, though many researchers believe the actual number of people with Ainu ancestry may be higher. Over many generations, numerous families chose to conceal or not openly express their identity. This reflects an important reality. The existence of the Ainu did not disappear suddenly, but gradually faded from public life in modern society. Ainu identity, however, does not rest in population figures, but in the way the world is understood. In the Ainu worldview, humans do not stand above nature, nor are they separate from it. They believe that all things possess a spirit, collectively referred to as Kamui. Mountains, rivers, fire, water, plants, and animals are all understood as beings with their own will and value. Humans are only a small part of this order, not its center, and not its controller. For this reason, Ainu life is built upon respect and balance. Hunting, fishing, and the use of natural resources traditionally followed unwritten rules, ensuring that people took only what was necessary for survival. In this context, livelihood was not merely an economic matter, but an ethical one, involving responsibility toward the surrounding world. The spiritual world of the Ainu is not organized into a rigid religious system or fixed doctrine. Instead, belief is woven into everyday life. Rituals, prayers, and oral stories are not meant for display, but to maintain balance between humans and the Kamui. Ainu culture, therefore, is not separate from daily life, it is the way life itself is lived. The Ainu language is an essential part of this world. It has no traditional writing system and exists primarily as an oral language. During the 20th century, the number of fluent Ainu speakers declined dramatically, at times leaving only a few dozen. As a result, many stories, epic narratives, and forms of traditional knowledge faced the risk of disappearing along with the last generation who still remembered them. Ainu culture, therefore, is not a static heritage. It depends on people to continue existing. As people change, and as the language falls out of use, this worldview becomes increasingly fragile. The journey of the Ainu is not one of expansion or conquest, but of maintaining balance within a world that is changing rapidly. From this cultural foundation, the story of the Ainu begins to unfold, not loudly, not dramatically, but with enough depth to reveal that behind modest numbers lies a way of understanding the world that is fundamentally different from our own today. In the Ainu worldview, Kamui are not simply gods in the common religious sense, but sacred beings present in all forms of existence in the universe, from animals and plants to natural phenomena and objects believed to carry special power. The Ainu universe is composed of two parallel worlds, Ainu Moser, the world of humans, and Kamui Moser, the world of the Kamui, with constant interaction between the two. Kamui are believed to visit the human world by taking the form of animals such as bears, fish, and deer, or even as fire in the hearth, and humans are responsible for welcoming them with respect, gratitude, and proper ritual. At the center of this relationship is Kamui Fuchi, the hearth goddess, who acts as an intermediary conveying human prayers to the spirit world. The Ayamant ritual, in which the bear is regarded as an embodiment of a Kamui and ceremonially sent back to Kamui Moser, clearly expresses the Ainu ethic of exchange. Humans receive the gift of survival from the Kamui and must return it through ritual, gratitude, and balance. For this reason, Kenwi are not beings to be dominated or feared absolutely, but part of a moral and ecological network in which humans, nature, and the sacred world exist in mutual dependence. Ainu clothing and handicrafts also reflect this worldview. Traditional garments, often made from tree bark fibers, are not only meant to protect the body but also carry spiritual meaning. The patterns embroidered or carved onto clothing and everyday objects are not purely decorative. They are believed to function as protective signs, warding off harmful influences and keeping the wearer safe within the unseen world. In Ainu culture, beauty is not meant to attract attention, but to preserve balance. Language plays a particularly important role in sustaining this worldview. The Ainu language has no traditional writing system and exists primarily in oral form. Stories, psalms, and epic narratives are memorized and passed down through generations, serving as vessels for history, knowledge, and a community's unwritten laws. During the 20th century, modernization and assimilation led to a sharp decline in fluent Ainu speakers, at one point leaving only a few dozen. This represented not only a loss of language, but a rupture in the transmission of worldview itself. By the late 20th and early 21st centuries, efforts to revive Ainu culture began to emerge, including language education, the restoration of rituals, and the return of Ainu culture to public spaces. Yet the greatest challenge lies not in preserving outward forms, but in maintaining the lived meaning of culture in contemporary life. When rituals are separated from everyday practice, and when language survives only in classrooms, culture risks becoming a displayed memory rather than a way of life that continues. This is not a story of direct confrontation or dramatic conflict, but of quiet transformation. A culture once lived fully through daily actions must now find ways to exist within a world governed by very different logics. And it is within this silent shift that questions of preservation, adaptation, and continuity in Ainu culture become increasingly clear. In the 20th century, alongside modernization and social integration, many Ainu people chose to fully assimilate into mainstream life. Oral language was used less often within families, rituals became less connected to everyday activities, and knowledge once passed down from generation to generation began to break apart. For many, Ainu identity became something to keep private, rather than a part of life openly expressed in society. Today, Ainu culture still exists, but it often appears in spaces very different from the past. Museums, cultural centers, and performance events play an important role in recording and preserving memory. Yet this also raises an unavoidable question: when a culture exists mainly within exhibition spaces, can it still be lived in the same way as before? This is the quiet climax of the Ainu story. There is no direct conflict, no clear boundary between loss and survival. Only a gradual shift from a culture lived daily to one that must be remembered in order not to be forgotten. This fragility does not lie in the number of Ainu people who remain, but in whether their worldview continues to be practiced. Even so, the story of the Ainu does not end with loss. In recent years, there have been growing efforts to revive the language, record epic traditions, and bring Ainu culture back into contemporary life in new ways. Language classes, small communities, and individuals who choose to publicly affirm their identity show that the culture has not disappeared entirely, but is seeking to exist in a different form.
Tanta pista hunpeana.
In a world that is becoming increasingly uniform, where speed and efficiency are often prioritized, the story of the Ainu reminds us that there have been, and still are, ways of living that are slower, more humble, and more closely connected to nature. These ways of life do not stand in opposition to modernity, but they raise questions that modern life sometimes forgets to ask. As this video comes to an end, what remains may not be a list of facts about the Ainu, but a feeling that is hard to name. A sense that there have been, and still are, ways of living different from what we are used to. If you feel that stories like these are worth listening to, consider subscribing to the channel so we can continue exploring cultures and people who are often overlooked. And before you leave, try holding on to a question the Ainu have lived with for generations. When humans do not see themselves as the center of the world, how do we choose to live the rest of our lives?